Hey, what's up, guys? Sebastian Castillo here. I know it's been a while, and I wanted to give you all an update on how things are going here in Cancun, and also to talk about something interesting today, which would be default assumptions and biases that people have. And that's kind of general, so let's be a little more specific. I'll start off with an example. When I say, let's take an 18-year-old kid, and I ask you, what is your default assumption about the financial situation of an 18-year-old kid? And most people would say, they figure a kid like that is broke or doesn't have much money, probably working a minimum wage job or saving up, got some money from birthdays, grandparents, all of that. But generally, that an 18-year-old doesn't have a lot of money. And in the vast majority of cases, that's totally correct. However, people's assumptions and biases tend to work against you in a lot of ways. What I wanted to kind of discuss in this video is how most people assume that other people are lazy. And what I mean by that is just look at the average person. The average person is not in great shape. Okay? The average person doesn't do very well financially or with their career or anything. They just do enough to get by, right? Maybe they start to clue in a little bit when they're in their late 20s, early 30s about investing. And if you ask me, that's already way too late to even start diving into that kind of stuff. Because with time and with more exposure to the money game, you realize that investing as you see it in these mainstream YouTube channels and these books by Robert Kiyosaki and all this shit, it's kind of a scam. In that it's just extremely slow. It's not going to make you rich anytime soon. What people don't tend to talk about is actually starting a business, a business that really anyone can do, that you don't have to be a tech genius for or anything like that, right? But not to get off topic. Default biases, right? When you're going for a job interview, for example, right? The person interviewing you is going to have default biases and an impression of you when they read your resume, when they look at your social media profile, they see your age, they see your race, all of these things. All these things that a lot of people nowadays, especially in the West, want to kind of gloss over and pretend that doesn't matter, when in reality, all of these things absolutely matter. And as I was saying earlier, these kinds of biases work against you. Why? Because even for myself, 28-year-old young man, most people assume that a guy my age with a similar background is, let's just name off a couple of traits, right? Probably addicted to video games, addicted to porn, addicted to, smoking pot, going out and drinking alcohol, lives in a pigsty, right? Doesn't take care of his space, probably doesn't visit the dentist as much as he should, doesn't have a solid gym routine, doesn't know how to cook or prepare decent, healthy meals, right? I mean, the vast majority of guys actually are like this. And the funny thing is, when you start to incorporate self-improvement in your life and take steps to remove yourself from that pool of the average people, you stick out, right? But the problem is, again, it's kind of hard to make that obvious from the get-go, right? If people see you in person, it's different, right? Because, for example, your physique speaks for itself. The way you dress speaks for itself. The way that you speak and communicate and come across, that in and of itself creates a different kind of impression. However, again, going back to that default bias that people have about guys around this age, you have to break that if you want to be noticed and if you want to stand out. And what I'm getting at here is, you can do the things I just mentioned, right? You can adopt a good gym routine. You can learn to dress better. You can learn to communicate more clearly, work on your speech and your tonality so that people take you more seriously. And the importance of this is that more opportunities will open up to you. The fact of the matter is, if you don't fix these kinds of issues, and you're not even, if you have to be aware of them and you have to fix them fast, otherwise there's a massive opportunity cost, right? Especially if you're in your 20s, you have no idea how important these formative years are. Because if you wait until you're in your 30s to start being honest with yourself about these kinds of issues, I'm not going to say it's too late, but 1 year's worth of work in your 20s is equal to like 5 years of work in your 30s, right? Just to kind of give you an idea. The time is just compressed so much because you have more energy when you're in your 20s, you have more likability, and people do kind of cut you some slack because you're just a kid in his 20s, or you might even be younger than that in your late teens. But once you cross that threshold of being 30 years old, which I'm going to be at very soon, people are not going to be so nice to you, right? In fact, as you go through your 20s as a man, people are already kind of starting to scrutinize you and judge you more, and even subconsciously looking at you, listening to you, judging whether or not you are someone that they want to keep around, who they can move forward with, who they can work on projects with, who they can even invite out to the bar or to a club or something, and for you not to make them look bad in front of other people, right? So I hope you guys are kind of following this. This is just completely off the cuff because I saw a video of a guy who, I respect him. He does well. He's a sales coach, but I was surprised to hear recently that I think he's like 34, even 35 years old. He's older than I thought he was, and I was thinking, gee, based on what he's announcing on his social media, it seems like only very recently he has started to cut out shit habits from his life, like staying out super late and drinking, not going to the gym, not taking his presentation more seriously. And that's what caused me to make this video here, to relay that message that you want to get this stuff down fast. You do not want to wait until you're in your 30s to start improving on those things. When you're in your 30s, again, this is all my perspective, but I feel like if you want to get the most out of life, you want to do as much as you can when you're young. And that means getting those basic things out of the way, or establishing routines like getting in the gym, dressing well, all of that, going to the dentist, getting your teeth cleaned every 3-4 months, maybe even twice a year if you want to just do it that way. So that later on, it's not even an afterthought. You can focus mental bandwidth on much more important things. Imagine if you're a kid and your parents never teach you to brush your teeth every day, or when you're entering your teenage years, they never teach you to wear some kind of antiperspirant or to take a shower every day, or at least every 2 days, right? It would be that much harder to adopt that kind of habit, and you would have to expend way more mental energy on it. Maybe I'm just clutching at straws here, but I hope you guys get what I mean. And then, just a quick update. So things have been going super well, actually. Sales-wise, can't complain. July is shaping up to be my second best month this year. And it's funny how, if you're in sales, maybe you can relate, but I will have a week or two sometimes where things are really slow, and then at the end of the month, right before the commission cutoff is, I just end up having a flood of sales, which is great. I love that. So that's going well. I'm always iterating and trying to improve. Oops, fuck. I've got the webcam on a stand here. And things are really looking up. I was planning on leaving Cancun in August, but I just keep putting it off because the problem with making a move like this is that it puts things into disarray. I have to take time off work. I have to spend a whole bunch of money on flights, on staying in a hotel, on eating out, on excessive transportation, looking at different properties and judging which one I want to live in. And then usually here in Mexico, you have to put down at least a month's worth of rent. No, you have to put down a month's deposit and then pay the first month's rent up front. So even if it's something, I mean, for you guys in Canada, the US, or whatever, this sounds cheap to you, but for me over here, wanting to save money but still strike a healthy balance between saving money and living a nice life, I'm looking at renting something for $500 or $600 a month. If you have to pay a deposit and then first month's rent, we're looking at $1,000 or $1,200 easily, right? So I need to have that money in my hand in order to, plus the money to cover the other expenses that I just mentioned, in order to actually dive into something like that. So what I've been thinking is, okay, I'll just give myself maybe even until September, so I am in a place where I can easily throw that money down and then have breathing room to do all the rest of that stuff, right? Because the idea here is, now that I'm doing much, much better than before, I can live a little. Because yeah, on the one hand, I could just continue living here in this house that I pay much less than $500 a month for, and continue saving. But at the same time, you have to, and if you had told me this earlier, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have definitely gone this route of, just keep my expenses to a bare minimum and just save. I don't exactly believe in that anymore, because the problem is you get too ingrained in that kind of lifestyle, and even when you do get to a point where you have money and it's not going to hurt you to drop a little bit more on rent to live in a nicer place, in a nicer area, it's going to sting to spend it, right? So I feel like it's better to just get that out of the way now and benefit from being in a nicer environment, a safer environment, a quieter environment with higher quality people around you. Because let's face it, right? One of the main reasons why people with money want to live in wealthier areas is so that they can be, by default, surrounded by other people who